Hey, everybody. Hey. How are you doing? Welcome back to another week of this awesome programming brought to us by the Black Church Food Security Network during our Faith, Food, and Freedom Summer campaign. We're so excited to have you back, family, whether it's your first time, second time, third, fifth, you're a reoccurring watcher of live stream, or you watch it later on. We just appreciate you being here with us for another week. Uh, and don't forget that in the chat, you can drop your questions, you can drop your name, your city, any organizations that you represent, and your home churches. We want to be able to connect with you afterwards, connect with your churches, and really build out Black Church Food Security Network. We are establishing ourselves alongside Black churches as a response to developing the Black food system and to promoting the idea of visibility of Black churches and Black farmers and Black consumers as our own sovereign entity so we can control the network of food that comes into our spaces, that is grown by us, and then that is distributed by us. The pandemic has shown us that we need to be in control of our own systems, and this is one of the ways we can do that. And by partnering with Black churches, which are institutionally strong Black sovereign entities, we are giving ourselves the ability to weather the storm, no matter what it looks like and no matter how it approaches. Black churches have shown themselves to be able to outlast any forms of repression, racism, and intentional destruction. And so we want to have that same energy and that same sovereignty and ability to just keep growing when it comes to our food. So that's a little bit about BCFSN. If we want to talk now about the Faith, Food, and Freedom Summer campaign, our goal is huge. We're trying to raise $100,000. And one of the things we want to do is promote gardening in African American churches. This is essential. This is an essential way that we can help control the narrative of our own food system in the Black community. So Black churches, we're reaching out to you. Two, we want to patronize Black farmers. If we're growing food in Black churches, it makes sense that we are partnering with Black farmers to bring in the food that we can't grow. We want to develop our economic sustainability. And three, we want to promote emergency food preparedness. Y'all, the coronavirus is here. The pandemic has showed us what is happening. We want to be able to be prepared in case things like grocery stores or markets aren't open. What are we going to do in order to preserve ourselves for the days we can't go just get food? And that's reality for some people anyway before the pandemic. So with all that being said, we also have a goal to raise $100,000, and we encourage you to reach out to your networks and to your friends and anybody else to support us. You can donate on our website. Look at that link. It's going across your screen. My finger's going the wrong way. It's over there. I found it. Here we go. But tap that link, donate, check out our work, and really just get connected to us. We want to get to hear from you and know you a little bit more. We've got an awesome guest today. The illustrious Michael Carter Jr. And at minimum, he is an 11th generation farmer in the U.S. and is the 5th generation farmer on Carter Farms. His family farm is a century old and is in Orange County, Virginia, where he gives workshops on how to grow and market ethnic vegetables. With Virginia State University, he is in the capacity of the Small Farm Resource Center coordinator for the Small Farm Outreach Program, as well as food safety coordinator and trainer. He sits on the board of directors for the Virginia Association of Biological Farmers and Virginia Food Shade Capital, respectively. He also serves as a state coordinator for the Black Church Food Security Network and as the safety coordinator for the 6-state Farm to Table organization. He acquired an agricultural and economic degrees from North Carolina A&T State University, and he has worked in Ghana, Kenya, and Israel as an agronomist and organic agricultural consultant. Carter Farms has birthed Hin Asim, Our Story, Carter Brothers Seeds and Things, Africulture, and the Black Farmer Tax that teaches and expounds on the contributions of Africans and African Americans to agriculture worldwide and the many stories that history almost forgot. Without further ado, I present to some and introduce to others Michael Carter Jr. Thank you so much for being with us, Michael Carter. We're excited to have you with us. And for those who are in the chat now, feel free to tell us just what your favorite conversation has been so far and why. We want to know. We want to hear from you. We want to see what we need to be bringing back. Okay, reoccurring Pastor Allen from AME Baltimore. All right. Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay. Let's see. Liberty Grace Church, our Church of God. Our pastor is Pastor Terry King. Okay. We got people coming in, coming in. Good to see y'all. Yes, welcome back. Welcome back. So, with some of the folks that you have seen and that you're interested in, what are some of the things that y'all have been learning about? Some of the things you want to know more about? Because we want to keep building from here and growing from here. So, in the comment section, feel free to drop what knowledge you want to acquire. What are some things you want to see happen on here? Who do you want to see us talk to? What are the connections you have? Because you might know folks we don't know. So let us know in the comments. Get us connected because we want to hear from you. We want to do some more dialogue. We want to do some more engaging. And we're trying to learn together. Pastor Brown always says the smartest person in the room is the room. And in this case, our room is the internet. So that connects us to all of you. So the smartest person are all the people who are here and those who will come later to watch. So if anybody has any other information they want to learn about, they want to see, they want to share, go ahead, drop it on the side. All right. Oh, we got a special guest. Hey, Siobhan, how are you doing?
Hi. Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here with you all for another Sunday. I'm actually trying to get my lighting right now. So Alex spoke about the Faith Food and Freedom Summer campaign. And that is the reason why we are here on this live right now, spreading information about gardening, agriculture, churches and agriculture, and how you yourself as an individual, how your family, how your community can connect back to agriculture. So Alex highlighted our three main goals. Our three main goals for the 95 days of summer. So for every day this summer, we call churches, we call communities, we call our families to connect back to agriculture by doing three main things. By promoting gardening. So on our website, so if you are a new church and this is your first time tuning in and someone told you to tune in to the Black Church Food Security Network live stream, or if you saw this on your timeline because somebody shared it, shout out to that person that shared it. I encourage everybody to share this stream with your networks. But we are calling people to promote gardening at African American churches. If that is you and you're like, hey, I want to promote gardening, but I don't know how right now. We have a YouTube channel called the Black Church Food Security Network. Mm-hmm. So you go to YouTube, and then in the chat box of or in the search box of the YouTube, you can type in the Black Church Food Security Network, and you will see like a slew of videos appear about how to start gardening, anywhere from regrowing commonly purchased items from a grocery store at home to how to plant a seed and to how to read a seed packet. So if you are a beginner, we can start where you are, and we encourage you to check out our YouTube. And the next thing is to patronize Black farmers. Like for the 95 days of summer, we are spending our money with Black businesses, mm-hmm. Black institutions, Black enterprises, and that includes Black farmers. Yes, we need to, what Elder always say, liberation is tied into owning the means of production. We need to first own the means of production in our community before we are able to liberate ourselves. And that's what our Black farmers are doing. They own the means of their production, and we have to support that institution. So if you want to know of any Black farmers within your area, within your city, within your region, head over to our website, blackchurchfoodsecurity.net, to check out our Black Farmer Directory, and you can spend your coins right with Black farmers. You can ask them how they grow their produce. And also, you can also tell them that you want something else. You want some zucchini, you want some broccoli, you want some cauliflower, you want some sweet potatoes, you want your sweet potatoes to be big. You can have those type of conversations and build those relationships with your farmer. And last but not least, we are promoting emergency food storage. Y'all, I just have fond memories of going to my grandma's house and seeing her can peaches, strawberries, make jams and preservatives. So we are calling people to reconnect what our grandparents did and preserve our own food for another stormy day, for another crisis, for another day when the grocery store shelves are empty. We will not be scrambling around, running around looking for food. We will have the vision and the foresight to prepare for another rainy day. So Michael Carter is back. So I'm about to bring him on the screen so he can lead us in an insightful conversation.
Michael Carter, good to see you, my friend.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. So the people got a little bit of an introduction into who you are. Would you mind just sharing just a snippet about yourself?
I like to refer to myself as the Michael Carter. My father doesn't necessarily like that, so I can only say that when he's not on the phone. Then he's the Michael Carter when I'm not around. He takes precedence because of my age and our relationship. But I am a grower, student, farmer, teacher, agriculture appreciator. I've been doing this pretty much since birth. My father was an agriculture teacher, which made me a agriculture student from birth. And I've always had my hands in the soil. And I recall when I was about 15 years old, I told myself in my mind, I didn't say it out loud because I didn't want to get hit. But I said, I'm never doing anything with agriculture again. If I'm done, I'm done. And it's like, this is the last time. I don't want to be shelling no peas, no planting nothing, no weed nothing, no watering nothing. And I made that, that was around 15, probably around 13. Around 15, I told myself I was cutting grass one day on like a 2-acre lot with a push mower with no automatic propeller, automatic push, propel yourself. Goodness. I'm gonna work with agriculture, but I'm just gonna grow. I'm gonna go to school and create a seed of grass that's only gonna grow like an inch tall, so I ain't never gotta cut grass again. And needless to say, I went off to school. I majored in agriculture at North Carolina A&T State University. When I graduated from there, I said I'm not going to agriculture, and I didn't for some time. But my father had planted a seed in me, which was planted in him by his father, which was planted in him by his father, which was planted in him by his father. And we are 11th generation farmers in America. We have a farm in Orange County, Virginia, that we've had in our family for the last 5 generations, 6 generations if you include my sons. So we've had our hands in our soil for a long time, and I've worked overseas in agriculture in Ghana, in Israel, and in Kenya, learning various techniques, ways of doing things, systems of production. Really focused on organic on that side and marketing. And when I returned back from Ghana after a 5-year, I really have a tough time telling me the truth. I told myself in 2012, I'm leaving America. I ain't never coming back. Look at me.
You're back.
Yeah, I'm back. I took up I don't know if you ever heard the organization called the KKK.
Yeah.
But those organizations always say, if you don't like it here, go back to Africa. I took them up with the offer, and I went back to Africa. But my father in his divine wisdom called me back home and said, you need to come back and take over the family farm. Your uncles and things who are running it are getting older. You already see you doing agriculture here in Ghana. So I need you to come on back and, take it over. And then that's been my case ever since. So I work with Virginia State University, Small Farm Outreach Program, working with small farmers with an emphasis on Black farmers or socially disadvantaged farmers. I work throughout so many different organizations, Virginia Association of Biological Farming, Virginia Food Share Capital, Black Church Food Security Network, Cultivate Charlottesville. I work on the produce safety, Virginia produce safety team. And then I consult with various lawmakers on policies for small farms, agriculture policy. Work with VDACs, which is the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Sit on some of their working groups in dealing with food access and the legalization of recreational marijuana. And then I also raise children.
You know. Oh, just a small little thing at the end. You just raise children at the very end. That's
yeah.
So side job.
Yeah, it's a side job. Yeah, that and the husband and other things are side job. I have 3 or 4 businesses that I run in addition to what I do, all agricultural related and history related. So I try to make everything work out.
About not doing agriculture didn't work out the way you thought it would.
No, but it didn't, but it worked out better.
Okay.
I'm actually able to tie. I've always been a fan of history, and I've been able to tie in a lot of the history, both family and historical, from African and African American perspective, into the work that I do, which makes my point of view a lot more rich for a lot of people.
So, and with that, I got some questions about your family farm.
Yes, sir.
And how y'all have managed to not just survive, but in knowing a little bit about your farm, in some ways thrive for these 11 generations of people, 6th generation going to your kids as the actual farmers.
Yeah. What's the question? I'm sorry.
So the question is, how have y'all been able to make it?
How we've been able to make it? I would dare say it hasn't been anything we've done special or amazingly. I always question and even try to understand. My great grandparents purchased a particular property in 1910, November 5th, 1910, for $722.05. And I have a tough time even trying to fathom where sharecroppers would have acquired that money to acquire the land. But it's been a great and tremendous effort on our part. One of the things that we've had to do, and is really rely on each other. I don't remember a war called World War II. During World War II, the property was, my great grandparents had died. Their children, not including my great grandmother, did something right before the Great Depression, had a wedding or something, borrowed some money against the land. And then when the Great Depression hit, they were not able to pay off that. So the land went into kind of a holding pattern, up for sale, because they weren't able to pay that debt. And my great grandmother, Maddie Carter, she enlisted her boys, her 3 oldest sons, which were Roy, my grandfather Warren, and then Uncle Alfonso, who were 19, 18, and 17, or 20, 19, and 18. They were listening to the war to go fight for the American side of the World War II. And before they left, she asked them, and they agreed to send back any of their money that they earned so they could acquire this land. So for 3 years, they sent back $29 a month from their pay as military workers working on the front lines of the war to secure the land and repurchase the land, but pay off the debt and any taxes that went on to that. And I think from that point on, the family had a certain devotion to my great grandmother as being the pillar and kind of even the visionary to keep that together, because she left land. Her husband, who had purchased land about 5 miles from there, had purchased 25 acres of land, which is still in the property, in 1915, before he even met her. So she already had land, but she understood the value of land and really embed that into her children and her grandchildren. So no matter what we were doing, we were always instructed to pay the taxes on the land, to keep the land. And, as of like today, we had a family meeting just today about how do we move forward with the land. And the family has come together. My great grandmother had 12 children, and everybody in the family has a say and a voice. She divided a portion of that land amongst the 12 children, and then the rest of it, about another 85 acres, is family land or air property. And we've been able to at least agree. We don't agree on nothing else. We agree that we got to keep the land in the family, and we got to continue to pay the taxes. So we've done that, and that's how we've been able to maintain it and continue it. And I can speak of experiences of other members of our family who did not do that and sold their land. So we had other land from other sides of the family that probably was sold to my behest and my disagreement, but I didn't have a say in the matter. So my great grandmother and my great grandparents, I attribute to instilling in us the value of land, and that's how we've been able to maintain it.
So, with your work as a historian and understanding the context of food systems and structures that are in place right now, why is it essential for the work that you're doing, Black Church Food Security Network, and other organizations to be really diving into this space of Black food sovereignty?
Well, I think, for everybody, anybody on this planet that's walking and breathing, if you eat, everybody eats. And as Henry Kissinger said in, I think, the Global Memo 2000, he said food is a weapon and food can control individuals. And the same thing was stated, maybe not in the same terms, but definitely in the same context with Frederick Douglass. He said that the slave masters would use food as a weapon to be able to control and move and dictate the enslaved Africans when they didn't seem to be agreeable with what they wanted them to do. So freedom or food is our first portion of sovereignty. The essentials that come to just people in general: food, clothing, and shelter. No one ever says clothing, shelter, food. Food is the first and foremost thing that we need. No matter what else we do, we need food. We need sustenance. And even from a biblical perspective, the first occupation on this planet was a gardener or a farmer with Adam. People attribute prostitution and other things as being the first and oldest profession, but no, before that, you had to take somebody on a date before you could actually do what you wanted to do. So agriculture has always been historically and realistically our greatest value. From ancient Kemet all the way up to the civilizations within West Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa, food and growing food was our strength. And ultimately, it determined the rise of civilizations, the thriving of civilizations, and ultimately the fall of civilizations. There was a paper done, I believe, in the 1930s by a guy named C.W. Laudermilk, who was a deputy or minister of agriculture deputy secretary of agriculture in the 1930s. And he did a study and kind of charted the civilizations of all the great Western civilizations of the world, and noticed that as their food sovereignty declined, so did their civilizations. And it's the same situation with our communities. Our communities were strongest when we controlled our food. And once we stopped controlling our food, our communities have went from communities to neighborhoods to hoods. And the only way it's going to come back is if we start growing our food and putting the central focus of our communities around food and food production. And that has a residual impact upon all of the communities in terms of other businesses. But food is the source. Everybody I know eats. I'm sure everybody you know eats. You have a small child. If she gets hungry, what does she do?
Eats.
She eats, or she cries.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if she's naked, she don't cry. She don't cry. You know what I'm saying? We all right. If I'm naked, I ain't necessarily tripping unless I'm in a crowd of people. I still not tripping either. But food. If you get hungry, I mean, everybody say I'm hangry. Food dictates our personalities, our moods. So it's a critical importance, but the value of it is not always seen by the broader individuals. Food is a unifier, but it also can create a significant amount of division. So it's critical for the development of any community, but especially our communities.
And what would you say we in the Black community lost our control over the food systems that were in place?
Integration.
And why is that?
Well, integration forced you, or not even forced you, but gave you the false pretext that somebody's ice was colder than yours. Integration should have been that we need to integrate into the communities or into businesses that we don't have until we can create our own. But instead, it was almost like a rush for all of us to give our money over to other individuals to show that we are worthy. It was a psychological play that played out a lot differently than probably what Lyndon B. Johnson and others who made that reality did. They'd understood the financial power of that. They would have done it a lot sooner. Would have been no fuss. And we didn't understand the impacts that it would have on our community. So there was not a plan from those individuals. They did a great job in fighting for equal rights, but that didn't mean that you had to give up anything that you were doing. So we saw a tremendous decline in Black farms after integration. And then you saw a negative effect of USDA policies affecting Black landowners, which resulted in a tremendous loss of property and farms. You also saw a push for education away from the farm. So instead of pushing for vocational education, you push for being a banker, being a teacher, being a lawyer, being a doctor, which has no connection to the farm. So that young man who grew up on a farm now is seeing an opportunity now to go to college, and instead of majoring in agriculture and continuing the family business, you major in marketing, you major in history, you major in psychology. And it's like, well, and then when you get back, you have no connection to the land and no skills or anything to add to it to enhance the farming business that your great grandparents or grandparents have started. And and then when they die, when you get the land, the way the way you've been educated, you end up selling the land as opposed to trying to keep the land and do something with it. And who do you end up selling to? Usually white farmers, because white farmers have always understood the value of the land. This land started with wealthy white male landowners being the decision makers in this country. Landowners were the key, and we gave up that land ownership for a degree. We gave up that land ownership for a car, for money. I mean, my great great grandparents bought that land $720, and the other property 25 acres for $225. And now you're talking about that land is easily valued well over $1 million. There's nothing else you could have purchased in 1910 that would have given you any measure of that amount in return. You could have purchased whatever new and improved stock before a stock market even existed, but you could have purchased Ford stock.
Yeah.
$720 of Ford stock. Today, that would not be equivalent to what this land is valued at. And you wouldn't be able to pass it down like that. So, we got educated out of our understanding of what is truly valuable in this country and with people.
And and I don't want to cut you off because you're on you're on a roll, but to follow that up, looking at the period of chattel enslavement and the constraints and the conditions around even the suppression and oppression of education, and then you talking about educating ourselves out of what is valuable, do you find that there are connections between those two things?
There's a tremendous connection. We assume that education is getting geared with their universities and their way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So we attribute education to their degree system, and I say the Western world's degree system. But these enslaved Africans, I mean, both of those individuals who purchased our lands that we currently use were either born enslaved or sons of enslaved individuals with no formal education, but they understood the value of land. And that's around the world. This is an indigenous concept of the value of land. Would it be Native Americans? Would it be Native Africans? Would it be Native Hawaiians, Native Indonesians? They understand the value of land, and they put a high value on it. That's why they generally don't sell it. It's not something that's allowed to be sold. And they understood, even those enslaved Africans definitely, or the descendants of enslaved Africans, understood that immediately. So the first thing they acquired was land. The first thing they put forth, when you talk about 40 acres and a mule, that was the first pretty much lobbying move that, the black pastors and the black leaders in South Carolina who sat down with General Sherman, and it was in 1965. That's the first thing they put on the table was land. They didn't say schools. They didn't say education. They didn't say a bank. They said, we want land. They understood that they had land. You couldn't stop me. Because land and the attributable rights are something that needs, provides you a certain amount of freedom, control. And as a landowner, again, you have the same rights as every other white person. So they were more intelligent than we are presently. In terms of understanding how to invest and what to invest in and what holds value. Because I swear, if you bought $720 worth of Jordans right now, they'd be worth not that by the end of the week. So we've got, none of those enslaved Africans, they may not have had shoes, and they would have sacrificed not having shoes for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years, for 7 years to save up money to buy land. Now we got a whole closet full of shoes and not a land the first. We stay in an apartment where there's not even any land that we can even cut or call our own.
And what would you say for folks who are in a space where they are understanding the value but can't quite find the capital means to acquire land because they don't have that generational pass down? I say for somebody like myself who is trying to grab land now, but I'm like, wait a second. We had land in Arkansas, but based on the systems of white white oppression and white terrorism and white destruction, my family was run off that land. I just learned about this land a month ago, and I was like, "What are you telling me?"
Yeah.
I lived in Arkansas for a year, mind you, Michael Carter Jr., and nobody told me where to go.
And that's one of the challenges that you have. But I would say the first part of that question is save. You know, do your research. The first thing you need to do is start looking, and don't look in the cities for land. You have to look in the rural areas. You're gonna find that you'll be able to find an acre of land for $5,000. You also can look in auction sites. There are a lot of auctions throughout the country. You can Google land auctions. I know in Virginia, I bought my house off of auction. I'm about to go out and buy some more land next month or off an auction. There are USDA auctions where you pay a percentage or of market value in most cases. Uh, the thing is, make it a goal. You can buy land for right now. An acre of land costs about $5,000 in Virginia. That can be affordable just with your COVID relief money that you got. That's $1,200 down payment. That's more than 20% that you could put down and finance the rest for 30 years, which would be about $40 a month in payment.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of interest and what you want. It's achievable, very much achievable. But you got to look outside of one, the urban metropolises.
Yeah.
And two, you got to look and prepare beyond. It ain't got to be immediate. I mean, my great-great-grandparents bought their property later on in their life, in their 50s and 60s. The key is to get it. It's not about when you get it. It's about getting it.
Can you say that again one more time? Just say that again one more time.
My great-great-grandparents bought their property in the latter years of their life, in their 60s. The key is not when you get it, but to get it.
And when you have it, how do you pass it down and ensure that your family keeps it? And on top of that, what are you doing to ensure that your children want to, at least one of them wants to be involved with it?
Well, that's a great question, and it's something that we have to be very mindful of. And that's something we have to do right now. It's what we call estate planning. So you need to set a will. If you have property or you're going to have property, you need to have a will. You will do your family a great service by letting them know what you want to do with your property, your assets. If you do not let them know what you want to do with the assets, the state has the opportunity to interpret what you want to do with your assets. State don't know you. So it creates confusion and misunderstanding. And usually what happens is two brothers in the fighting and somebody else walks away with the land. And that's not what we want to happen. So have a will, get a will. Put all that in writing, officially get it, with your what's the thing called with the stamp, the notary public, get an official will done. Change it up as your mind changes, change it up. But it doesn't cost you much to get that in place. The second thing that we're doing is putting our land into a trust. And that trust allows it to be sustained, that no matter who, there'll be trustees who manage the land and not descendants. Because what happens with a lot of our land in terms of heir property is that my great-grandmother had 12 children. Her 12 children had umpteen children. Her umpteen children have children. And it can become, you went from one owner now to 35 owners who all have a different say. And if one of them wants to sell, they can force to sell ideally. There are new laws coming down in terms of heir property. I know in the state of Virginia, there's been some new laws that's come down, and in the Farm Bill of 2018, some new laws that come down where heir property try to protect it. But the key is to get in front of it. Don't put yourself in a position to, when you die, now you're creating all sorts of drama and trouble with your family because you weren't specific about what you want to have done with your land. What I'm doing with my children, I've started a business for my children called Carter Brothers, which is their Carters and their brothers, because I want them to see the value of agriculture and the land. That's even though I had the land, I grew up around the land, on the land. I didn't see the value of it. I didn't know the history of it. So once I got 18, what did I do? I left. I didn't want to go back and see the land. I didn't want to have anything to do with it because I couldn't see how money could be generated from that. And that's where a lot of Black farmers don't do well by their children. It's showing how you make money on the farm. There's so many different ways to make money on the farm. And all of us, when we go to college or we get out of school, high school, we're looking to make money. So if I can show you how to make money on the farm, And if you go to school and you can see how this marketing applies to my farm, how this finance applies to my farm, how this, psychology applies to my farm,
Mm-hmm.
I can make it now real. Because many times you take those algebra classes and a lot of these other classes, you're just like, how does this apply to my real life? Well, if you don't have anything to really apply it to, then it's never going to apply.
Yeah.
But so I'm trying to instill my not just my sons, but the entire generation of the next generation in my family, the value of how to make money farming, how to make money with agriculture, how to make money with land, and why you cannot sell it.
So we got a lot of different comments coming in, a lot of folks just mentioning stuff and asking questions. One question we got for you, the Michael Carter Jr. Is how do we form collectives for liberatory regenerative co-ownership of land?
Oof. That's a tough one, and I speak from experience. When I was in Ghana, I tried to start like a collective. We had purchased 50 acres of land. A brother had purchased it, and I bought into it. And I tried to bring another brother into it. It first starts with agreement. You have to agree on what you want to do with the land, and kind of have a good leadership structure of how to move with the land. I've always, for me, it's been extremely challenging to get agreement, to be able to level out who's going to be the leader, who's going to deal with the finances. So you need a good organizational structure. And once you have a good organizational structure, you can do anything. And even with co-ownership of land, all that can be written out with a good organization structure. You can get this percentage of land for, the amount of money that you invest in. You put in half, you get half the land. You put in the eighth, then you get an eighth of the land, etc. I would say it starts with a lot of conversation before you purchase anything. And I would dare say purchase something small. Purchase, a car together, or a vehicle together, a farm vehicle together. See how y'all manage that. And then go into the actual land ownership where, more feelings may be involved.
Yeah.
So purchase a bottle, a thing of Kool-Aid together. See if y'all can manage how you want to, who gets the most cups of Kool-Aid, and what kind of apprehension and disagreement may come from the group, that group. A lot of times we meet individuals in spaces where everybody seems to be on one accord and we assume things. But when you get into more serious discussion, you realize they're not the same. They don't have the same mindset or purview that you thought they had before.
So, speaking about this, and a lot of folks who may be listening, I'm not sure the percentage, but like they may be in more city like, or even some suburb like settings, and you're suggesting to go out to the rural spaces. And as someone who is a historian, and you've talked about sharecropping, you've talked about the period of chattel enslavement, and now where we find ourselves in the period post-integration. How can folks really reckon with some of that negative stigma that comes with going out into the land, into spaces like farming, that is so tied to potentially trauma and into a period of enslavement? But also on the other side of the coin, this is a thick question, it's a thick one. For Black folks who have tried to be in rural spaces and find themselves on the receiving end of more trauma. As someone who has a partner who I used to live in rural spaces, and when we were dating, they would come visit me, and they found themselves almost run off the road, by some white folks who live in that same space. How do we reconcile that?
Sure. That's a thick question.
Yeah.
But it's no thicker than how our ancestors did it coming out of chattel slavery. We've got to develop a long-term vision of what we want. And I'm going to approach this from a different perspective, just to give some purview. Look at it from a political perspective. When you are in a city, your voice is so much lower in terms of your political influence. So if you're in Washington, D.C., if you're in Atlanta, that city may vote Democrat. But that city only has 1 or 2 electoral votes. Wyoming has 6 people, but they have 4 electoral votes. The way this country is set up is to set up for landowners. So if we're looking at it from just a political perspective alone, the most revolutionary thing you can do is to buy land in those remote areas. And then you just got to thicken your skin in terms of dealing with the cultural shock that comes with living in a rural space, the convenience. And convenience in our community is a killer.
Mm.
And we've got to move away from convenience and move more toward purpose and intentionality and legacy. Convenience doesn't provide any legacy. It provides only convenience for yourself. So
You said convenience doesn't provide any legacy.
not at all.
I'm gonna have to get that tattooed on my leg. I ran out of space on my arms.
Don't get a tattoo, get a shirt instead. Pass it on to your son. But understand that, you know, the problem with black farmers and us not supporting black farmers is convenience. When you go to the grocery store and buy lettuce, you're buying convenience. You're buying a bag or a box of lettuce that's been pre-washed. So all you got to do is open the container, put your hand in it, take it out, put it in your bowl. Most of us don't even rinse it off anymore.
I wouldn't suggest that. If you, I would suggest you do it.
I'm just saying, most of us don't rinse it off anymore. Just straight to the thing. You know, because convenience is convenient.
Yeah.
But it's killed black farmers. And living in a city is convenient. We have everything that we want and need, but we feel like we want and need, but we have no land. Show me some land you can buy in any city in America. That's less than any. I mean, that's less than $100,000 an acre. And you're not even able to buy an acre in the city. You can buy a quarter acre plot, maybe.
I'll say in my research, as you suggested, I found probably the best price so far is 6 acres for $400,000.
All right, so divide that up. That's $85,000 an acre.
Yeah.
So it's like who has that money? And that's before you put a house on it. That's before you do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But you take that same $85,000 or that same $400,000 and you go to Wyoming. You go to parts of Virginia, parts of North Carolina. You're buying 10 acres, 20 acres, 30 acres, 40 acres for that same amount. That you can now create your virtual city, that you can create your virtual community, that you can, if with a little patience, you'll be able to have the internet access that you need. You know, and then you start to appreciate the fact that you ain't got to go to Walmart every day or whatever store every day. You ain't got to have Chipotle every evening. You can create your own. You can cook your own. But again, we have to take the convenience out of our mind because that's really what's our biggest grappling hook that's keeping us in the form of, you know, this kind of staying trapped to a city who doesn't love us, who doesn't care for us. We pay taxes, but we don't see really any benefit. We vote in these blocks and we don't see any benefit. You want to have some radical change, move to the rural areas where your vote will really matter.
So what about, so here's a question. What about folks who are like, you know what? I'll buy some land in a rural area. I'll farm, but I'm still going to live in my house.
Go with it. Ain't nothing wrong with that. There are so many, it's about the 50% of the landowners in America live in cities who are considered farmers. You own farmland, you fill out or get a farm number, you're considered a farmer. You don't have to actually farm it. The key is not necessarily to farm it, but to have it, because that's the legacy aspect of it. They own that land. And if you register to vote in that area because you're a landowner, you now can have influence and turn that blue state red, that red state blue, whatever your political persuasion is.
So with this understanding, right, you talked about a farm number. If you wouldn't mind giving a brief understanding about when folks buy land and want to consider a farm, what are the steps they should take? But also, what are the concerns they should have in recognizing the USDA's sometimes, and not just sometimes, but oppressive structures that are in place?
Well, and I'm glad you asked that question. I would definitely say, one, everybody on this call, listening to this call, if you're renting, if you own, to go to your local USDA office and apply for a farm number. It's free of charge. They cannot deny you. If you are or are not growing anything at all, they can't deny you for having a farm number. Even if it's in an apartment, in a condo, you can be doing microgreens, you can be doing hydroponics. They don't know. It's not their business to know. When you come in there and get a farm number, that now makes you a farm. That also increases our number of black farm owners in this country. Which, when the farm census comes out again in 2 years, because there are two different censuses. There's a general census, and then there's a farm census. And the more black farmers that we have will attribute more resources to black farmers, both in rural spaces and urban spaces. In the latest farm bill, I think there was a key component about urban farming. So there's a whole nother financial component for urban farming. So if you live in the city, you can be an urban farmer, and there's money in the farm bill for you. Go to the USDA office and find out what those programs are, or
And these are,
contact me.
and these are the benefits of having the farm number,
We
right?
ain't even got to the benefits yet.
Oh, go on, bring it on, bring it
Yeah,
on.
this is just the process of getting it. The benefits are generally tax breaks. If you have land, that land can be converted to farmland or farm use. Farm use taxes are much different than residential taxes. So you pay probably a third or quarter of what you would in residential taxes with farm use taxes. And your house could be considered part of the farm use taxes. You can go one step further and start you a farm, or start a farm, a business. Get an LLC or something where you now can, register your farm, your property as a farm. You got a farm number, and all the expenses that go on in your property, paying the mortgage, your light bill, your cable bills, all farm expenses. So then when your taxes come around, the number of deductibles that come on your taxes are increased dramatically, and you'll see a reduction in your taxes by not doing anything but applying for this farm number and itemizing your deductions for your farm. And you will see an increase in your overall income because you're not paying as much in taxes. And that's how most white farmers work it, and they work it well. On top of that, with COVID relief and other things, if you're doing actual production, there are checks that are coming out. I received a check for my farm. I ain't doing much of nothing right now. And I got a nice little check. I got a check to pay my mortgage. And, just by going to the office, filling out some paperwork, saying that I was affected by the COVID, which we all were. And, 3 weeks later, there was a check in the mail, direct deposit to my account. So I've heard checks as much as $15,000 to $30,000 in Virginia of the larger cattle farmers. So, the opportunities are there. This is how you play their game. They've been playing it since the creation of the USDA in 1862. They created the USDA because they no longer foresaw that we could not be enslaved Africans. So right before the Civil War started, the USDA was created. Actually, I think it was created, in process. They knew the Civil War was coming, so they created the USDA to aid white landowners. And then when you had the 40 Acres of the Mule and ultimately the Freedmen's Bureau, we saw a loss in that, and they pushed us out of that to make sure we didn't benefit from any of those programs. So we really haven't benefited from those programs for the last 100 plus years. We've got to start getting into the game. This is how change is made. This is how influence is done. This is how progress is made, both from an electoral level, a policy level, and a financial level, and ultimately enhancing your legacy.
So we're coming up on the end of our time. We just got a few minutes left, and I got your cell phone number. And I got some plans, so you were on the top of my contact list. Don't worry about it. My partner and I have been having the conversation about who do we know we could talk to who already got a farm. So you're on the very top. But for folks who are listening and are in the faith world and faith community right now and are trying to figure out ways to support you, to donate, to just be in contact, to learn from you, what are the ways they can get connected to you? Do you have a website, social media, a donation button?
We have we have two websites. We have the THE Carter Farms, CARTERFARMS.com. I need to add a donation button. I don't have one, I don't think. Then we have CarterBrothers.net. That's my son's website. We do PayPal. We do Cash App. My email is carterfarmsva@gmail.com. Email me. I'm busy right now, so if it takes a couple of days to get back to you, just know it's charged to my head, not my heart. But I will get back with you and communicate with you accordingly. Our Cash App is $CarterFarmVA. So it's -S CarterFarmVA is the Cash App, and then CarterFarmsVA@gmail.com is our PayPal address. We take donations. We'll take the kind that jingles, but we prefer the kind that folds. in memory and honor of coming to America. But I would encourage anybody and everybody to support Black farmers, support Black businesses. We need each other more now than ever before. The reason why we're in this situation is because we didn't support each other. And the only way we can get out of this situation is do what we didn't do before, and that's support each other. So if we're serious about revolution, we need to go out of our way to make sure we support Black businesses, Black farms, Black banks, anything that's about us. We need to be very intentional about what we do and how we do. And as you can see with the current presidency, he's very intentional with who he targets his information with, his programs. We have that same power. We just have to exercise and use it. Don't be scared to exercise it.
And so just lastly, my last question for you is we're talking about getting farm numbers and getting people access to land and things like that. What would you recommend as the place for people to start growing, or what would be something that folks could start growing in an easier practice if they're able to acquire land?
If you're able to acquire land, try growing weeds first. And when I say weeds, I mean just till the land, plant some lettuce, you have to get into farming shape. When you reach my age and you start playing basketball, you think you can play with the young boys, which I can, but a lot of folks can't at over 40. They got to get themselves into farming or basketball shape. They realize, okay, I'm a little winded. We ain't been on the ground a lot as younger people. We are not used to maybe insects, bugs, mosquitoes, sweat bees, horseflies, mayflies, etc. We're not used to really being in the sun for extended periods of time when it's 95 degrees outside, it's 12 noon, it's the heat of the day. So I would encourage you to get yourself in farming shape first and learn how to grow and kind of let the farm teach you. The plants will teach you what's doing well. They will let you know when insects are bothering them so you can start to plan for the next year. Use that first year as a practice. Don't be trying to make no money. Don't be trying to have a whole bunch of stuff posted on Instagram and Facebook. Don't cut out all that. Get your legs under you and figure out, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I've seen. Read the books, a whole bunch of books about agriculture. Find out what you like. Grow what you like to eat. You like collard greens, grow collard greens. You like kale, you like Swiss chard, you like cucumbers, you like tomatoes. Grow those things you like to do. That's going to give you a vested interest into understanding and build a relationship with them. I encourage everybody on any type of land to take their shoes off and their socks off and start to feel the land underneath your feet. There are vibrations that are going forth on both ways, from the earth, from the soil, from the plants, and from you. And when we start to do that, we start to build another type of relationship with the land, the soil, the earth, and you'll find that they're much more receptive. And you start to feel and really be an empath to those plants and to those insects that you see. And you start to appreciate and you start to notice those things. And then from there, you start to grow what you want to grow. So I don't have any specific thing that I would recommend for anybody, but grow what you like. And be patient with yourself first and foremost. If it fails, it's okay. If it fails again, it's okay. If it fails a third time, it's okay. I mean, the people who ultimately colonized this area, they were down to 50 people in 1610. They kept sending people. They were cannibalizing each other, eating each other. The Native Americans were plotting against each other, but they had a vision that they could do it. We have to have that same tenacity of saying we can't give up. We can't not do what we're supposed to do. So I encourage everybody. I mean, don't let a couple weeds here and there or some mosquito bites deter you from your spiritual and ancestral legacy.
So there's one last question for you in the 2 minutes. Last question, 2 minutes.
Right.
When will Black people have true freedom?
All right. When will Black people have true freedom? And that's an interesting question as well, because I lived in Africa for 5 years, and I had a semblance of true freedom, but I didn't have ownership. I think true freedom comes from your mindset. When you're in America, you don't have true freedom because everybody owns something. When you're in other places, you can start to see or experience what true freedom feels like, and it's usually not involving anything with money. It's usually just the freedom to do what you want to do when you want to do it. and going through the process, whatever the process is of doing that, that's the true freedom. And when is when you decide that you want true freedom, and you define it as such. And once you decide it, and once you decided to move on it, you acquire it. And I did acquire it in Ghana, West Africa. I could say I was truly free for a couple of years. I felt free anyway.
Well, Michael Carter, you did that in about 1 minute, so we appreciate you being so concise with your answer. And in the statement here, we have, it's gone now, but that's okay. Here it is. I love this. Let land teach you. Build a relationship with the land. Take your shoes off. Feel the land under your feet. Build a connection with the land, the soil, the earth. You start to grow from there.
And let me just add a comment to that, since I got 30 seconds or so.
Yep.
From a spiritual perspective, from a biblical perspective, all those matriarchs and patriarchs in the Bible that we read about in the Old Testament had a very strong connection to the land. Would it be Jacob? Would it be Joseph? Would it be Abraham? So this is part of your spiritual legacy. And we need to read more into the agricultural aspects of those things when you're giving your sermons, when you're doing your scriptorial study. See how many agriculture-related laws are in there. It's like 200 agriculture-related laws in the Bible. Agriculture was at the center of our spirituality, no matter if you were a Hebrew, a Kemetic science person, a Khan science, Yoruba science, Ethiopian, whatever it was, agriculture was always at the center. And that's where the true freedom comes, when you start building that relationship with the land, the creator, and the earth, and yourself.
Well, Mike Carter, once again, I've learned a lot from you. I got a nickname for you. I'm not going to tell you on the internet. I want everybody else to know. But I call you the farming scholar in my mind. I'm like, that man, the farming scholar. Go ahead, just ask a couple questions. But folks, look at the information below for the Cash App, for the website. Not a donation button yet, but feel free to send the Cash App in-kind donations. Reach out and just support this wonderful man right here, the Michael Carter Jr., and all the work that is being done with the farm, with the family, the history, and just the larger connection around the world. We thank you, Michael Carter, for your time. And we will talk soon.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. Keep growing, everybody.
And so, folks, just once again, we want to say thank you, and we appreciate all of you all for rocking with us through the end of August here. We've got more coming in September. Be on the lookout. The Faith, Food, and Freedom Summer Series. Just stay connected. Look at the campaign goals. Make sure you are doing whatever you can with your churches to build into and connect with this network. Make sure you're growing food. Make sure you're supporting Black farmers. We want to be here and continue to grow past the state of this pandemic. We appreciate the time y'all are taking out of your lives to just be with us, sit with us, to challenge us and grow with us. But follow us on social media. Check out our website. Please donate to us as we continue this work, as we want to build and create the sovereignty. Thank you all once again, and have a good night.